November 7th. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for making us part of your day. He's Paul Zamsky, Vice President of Rekor Systems. He heads up Rekor's Transportation Division. Paul has worked at transportation agencies throughout the US, Europe, Asia, supporting AI applications for transportation. Prior to joining Rekor, he helped build and launch Waycare Technologies, an AI smart and mobility platform acquired by Rekor in 2021. A little town twister there. We had a little issues there in the morning, but we're going to work it out. Thanks for being here, Paul. We appreciate it. How are you today? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Thank you for having me, first of all. Really appreciate to be able to have this conversation.
For sure. How does AI help improve traffic flow and reduce congestion on the highways?
So AI is really an incredible tool to kind of detect anomalies and be able to identify patterns in any type of mechanism out there. What place that you actually have similar recurring patterns is traffic, right? So you have a lot of cars, you have commuters, you have a lot of information out there, but you have also a lot of data that's coming out there. And what AI is really able to do is start to analyze the real-time traffic conditions, kind of the speed, the slowdowns, any information about the erratic driving behavior, so hard braking and swerving, and use that to be able to both detect anomalies and hopefully optimize the roadways according to what the AI is able to identify.
Yeah. What kind of data does AI roadway systems collect, and how the data is used in real time?
So in terms of data, there's a lot of different sources. Obviously, we have a lot of existing systems out there, from cameras to sensors that the states, cities, and counties put out there on the roadways to make those roadways connected. But that's only part of the equation. Another incredible source of data is that cars today actually transmit a lot of information out there. They're fully connected to the internet. They're basically telling, location, speed, heading, talk about the erratic driving behavior, if your windshield wipers are on and things along those lines. All this data is extremely valuable because what we look at it is, think about it like a car is a virtual sensor on the roadway. Rather than having to put a specific physical hardware that can pick up what's going on at that location, the car is telling us, I'm driving at this speed at this location. I just changed lanes in a fast motion. All this information is really a big part of how AI is really looking into understanding the patterns on the roadways. I'll always emphasize, it's really important, non-identifiable information. So we don't know who, we don't know what, and what the person's coming from and going to. It's just an anonymous point giving us an idea of the traffic patterns out there. There's also a lot of other information, crowdsourced, Waze, Google, a lot of people out there, and obviously a lot of weather feeds that we can use. But really, it's all coming together to be able to give this holistic view of what's going on the roads.
Yeah. That Waze is pretty accurate, though. I wasn't a fan of Waze for a long time, and I'm like, no, it's a cop there. It's a cop there. Okay, slow down. It's pretty accurate. It does help a lot.
Yeah, it really is. I think it did a significant amount of benefit to the concept of crowdsourcing and how the value of data from all these different people, from human interaction to a car itself, can provide value to other people on the roadway.
Yeah. How are AI algorithms trained to recognize hazards, pedestrians, vehicles on the road? Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, so it's trained. It's really the right way of looking at it. What we do is we take a lot of historical data. We've been working this for 7-8 years. Right? You mentioned Waycare. This is where we started in the early days. We were looking at the patterns out there. We've identified that in 83% of crashes, there's some sort of erratic driving behavior that we can associate to that crash. So we know that there is markers that can tell us that something is happening out there on the roadways. There's historic patterns of where crashes are happening. There's many different types of sources of information that is in training the algorithm. So over time, we kind of teach the algorithm what is normal, what needs to be flagged, anything unusual that comes up. And then we also closely work with human validation. So we actually work closely with, obviously, departments of transportation and folks that are responding to these incidents, and they confirm, reject, give us reason why not the incident might not be there. And based on this information, we're actually improving overall every single year. The algorithm itself has been really, our algorithms, we have many of them, have been really honed in over the last 8 years to become the best and they are in the field today to be able to do some of this work.
Yeah. It's so weird, right? Like certain roads, you're like, I don't want to go on that road because there's always an accident. There's always traffic. Can that like pick that up as well? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's actually one of our first algorithms that we started with. It's called irregular congestion. So congestion, I live in LA, right? So we talk about this here, New York. So you know what it is.
It's morning, night, and evening. It's like always traffic. I just couldn't live in LA. I love LA. It's just too much.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because you know exactly what everything's going to be. Everything's 45 minutes away, no matter where you go. But
Yeah, in terms, right?
exactly. But in terms of traffic, right, congestion is a normal part of the day-to-day, commute experience out there. Obviously, COVID and some of the changes in patterns affected a bit those patterns out there, but it's a normal part of how things are running out there. So what we really look at is how can we identify what is not normal trend out there. So this is one of the early algorithms that we did. We have an irregular congestion out there. And a good example, think about North Carolina, 80,000 miles of road, congestion all over. You have 50 people looking at all the roadways out there.
Yeah.
You don't want to look at every single queue as an indicator that something's happening. What you want to know is that something is happening over there that should not be happening.
Yeah.
That is something that we want to kind of work into. That's really the real-time operational side of traffic management.
Yeah, well said. What role does machine learning play in predicting and preventing accidents? Can we prevent accidents?
Mm-hmm. So machine learning is really good at pattern recognition, right? So what we are looking at is what are the kind of the risk patterns and other types of behaviors that are indicative that there's either high risk of crashes out there. That's actually how we started. That was our first algorithm. We're looking at how can we predict the high risk areas on the roadways. And we have a crash prediction algorithm, and it's been going on since 2017-18. We've done a lot of work on it. We actually did a program in Nevada where we worked with highway patrol officers to position them in high risk areas, not to provide tickets, but to had them on the side of the road, put a board say police monitoring ahead. Yeah. And we saw people slow down. 91% of drivers over the speed limit came back down to the speed limit. Wow. And we saw an 18% reduction in primary crashes at that time. So that was a really big advance out there. But what we saw is that prediction is only one part of it, because there's a lot of lacking of information for real time, what's going on in real time. So what we really focused on then was detection of existing crashes. How fast can we detect a crash? What we were able to do is, on average, across the US, we detect crashes 9 minutes faster than a traditional means. So 9 minutes faster than a 911 call, than a Waze alert, whatever it may be out there. We detect that faster, and we help the agencies respond to that and clear that roadway faster.
Right.
Clearing it out faster reduces the chances of secondary crashes. For each minute that a crash is out there on the roadway, it increases by 8% the chances of a secondary crash. And you know what? Secondary crashes are actually more fatal than primary crashes. So it's really a big, big part of it. So we've found in our deployments, we were able to reduce these secondary crashes by 28%. So yeah, machine learning is really a big part of how we can help. What is going to help us is identify this information, identify the patterns to respond to it in an effective manner, and therefore kind of helping the outcome, which is making a safer experience and more enjoyable experience for the drivers out there.
Yeah. How does AI power traffic lights communicate with vehicles and sensors? Because a couple days ago, I was going through a red light. I think I went through a red light. I hope I didn't get a ticket going through that red light. There's probably a camera on there, late night driving. I just went through a strange road. I just went right through. So let's see what happens with that traffic light citation.
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of technology that's coming up on the traffic lights. It is really a great source because there's power, there's an intersection. You have something you can attach a lot of physical hardware on it.
Right.
I would say there's two really ways that we work that cars interact with the traffic signal today. Putting the cameras aside, picking up if you're going through the red light. Yeah. The car itself can have a direct communication with the traffic signal, and there's a lot of existing use cases out there, not just for private vehicles, but transit or emergency services. Right? If they want to optimize the bus lane, you turn the green lights when the bus is arriving, or when there's a fire truck coming, turn off all the lights to make sure that it's only that fire truck is the one that can go and has the priority along the line. So that is a short range communication between the sensor on that vehicle
Right.
and the actual signal and traffic signal itself. There's a lot of really cool technology out there coming out. But what we also do is cloud to cloud, right? So we connect to the cloud that is powering those traffic signals. And looking at the cars, right? You're talking about this queue.
Right.
We can detect that there's a queue at that location. Or if there's a crash on the freeway and that crash is spilling over onto the streets nearby, what signal is it affecting? What is the buildup happening? And use that information to adapt the signals and translate that into some sort of flushing of the traffic out there. So there's a lot of really different, interesting ways of communicating, some more technical than others, but it really is a way to make this a truly integrated part of the way we're on our roadways today.
Yeah. Sensors like radar, right? We don't like those, right? Radar, cameras, most effective on the roadway systems. Cops, right? Is that like an obsolete thing? The cops sitting in their car pointing a gun at your car? Is that like kind of like obsolete now? Seems like it, right?
No, they still do that. What I'll say, there's really it depends on the environment, right? So radar, cameras, and lidar. The political answer is a combination of all of them together makes really the ultimate system out there. So within the signal world, you have a lot of folks that have invested in making cameras the real source for information. Do you know who does a lot of cameras? Tesla. Tesla has a lot of cameras on their car. So it's not actually LiDAR, radar. They use the cameras, and it's a really rich visual detail, but you don't actually have that depth perception, and you have a lot of lack if there's rain or fog that cameras cannot pick up. Right. LiDAR is really good at detecting many different types of objects, but some sort of precisions and vision, know the object, but some other aspects, especially colors, are not going to be picked up. So to be honest, there's actually some now fusion of LiDAR camera that's coming in together. So you can have a sensor that picks up something in this location. You have a camera coming in from this other location, and putting it all together, it becomes this multi-sensor fusion. Really, that's creating a lot of reliability. Radar is really good specifically actually for specific use cases. I want to know on the side of the road travel time from point A to point B. We actually use Bluetooth also. So you can connect to the Bluetooth and see how long it took from a vehicle to get from point A to point B. Therefore, we know the travel time. Same thing with radar. How many cars? What's the size of the car? So that we can know way in motion. What are what's the size of the truck and how much it's affecting the roads? All these different applications. But I think as future develops, really an integrated fusion of all these technology in one system is really the right way to go.
Yeah, you're right about those Teslas. I was actually in one like a while ago, and my buddy just bought one, and I was just amazed. I was kind of jealous because I have a Mercedes and he has a Tesla, and there's multiple cameras everywhere, like the side, the front, the back. I was like, "What is this?" Amazing, amazing. And the camera inside in the car, the dashboard, it was just like I was just blown away. Like I felt very safe in a Tesla. I didn't think I was going to be ever feel safe in a Tesla, but I was amazed by the camera system in that car. Just amazing.
Yeah, they made a big bet on the cameras in the car rather than going LiDAR, which most other car manufacturers have went with. And I think there's benefits and it's paying off for them. It also looks good because you can really see anything with those cars, Sentry mode and all that. There's a lot of cool things. But I think in the long run, it's going to be a combination of that camera, that LiDAR, with cloud data, what's happening with two cars ahead of you, what's happening down the road that's connecting back to that car. All that is a big part of how you're going to really get that truly safe, connected environment.
Yeah, that's telling for sure. How does AI integrate with smart vehicles or autonomous driving systems?
So actually, that's a great way to talk about the previous point, right? It's AI is this layer of intelligence that is sharing a variety of different information out there. So I think in the world of smart vehicles and autonomous vehicles, you have as good sensor as you can on the car to know what's happening near you. But you cannot have a camera that's going to look 3 or 4 or 5 cars ahead or down the road.
Right.
Having correct, accurate representation of the conditions on the roadways, what we call roadway intelligence, is key to really making autonomous vehicle systems and any other smart vehicle ecosystems, truly revolutionary. So knowing that AI is able to take all these different, sensors at the edge, at the cloud, all these different data sets, and create these layers of information from work zones to weather conditions to traffic conditions to lane closures to other vehicles out there will kind of improve overall the routing and safety and help to transition to an autonomous driving because you have that right information for that.
Speaking to Paul Zamsky, VP of AI Roadway Technology, joining us on the program today. How reliable are AI systems in extreme weather visibility conditions like you just talked about? Certain areas get more snow than others, or East Coast area versus the West Coast. You guys don't get snow at all. Good for you guys. But out here in New York, I hate it, but I still put up with it. How cool is AI, the systems in extreme weather? How's that?
Yeah, it's really weather has been really an interesting part of the work that we do here. We work from Oregon to Ohio to Florida, so it's to LA, right? It's all of these are different weather patterns, and each have their specific uniquenesses. I think there's really two ways of looking at it. First of all, looking at the car as a potential weather sensor, right? If I can tell you, for example, your Mercedes has an ADAS, right? So the ability to kind of know that car ahead of you when you're doing automatic cruise control.
Right.
If you ever drive in a snowstorm, it will stop. It'll say low visibility.
Yeah.
It'll bring that information up. Using that information, we can tell there's a poor visibility at that location. We can tell other people around you there's whiteout condition, there's fog, there's something along the lines. Windshield wipers are on. We know it's raining. What's the intensity of the windshield wipers? We know that it's raining a lot. So you don't even need a physical weather station anymore to be able to do that. You can use the vehicles. The vehicles have a lot of those sensors out there. So
right.
I think AI is able to really utilize that. That's a big part of it. How reliable are, in terms of, the ability to perform in these is going to be on what is a data set? What is a sensor? The use of multiple data sources, from connected car data to external weather information, from satellites to agencies have the best quality weather data. They have the physical sensors that are the best out there in the field.
Yeah.
So relying on that is great. All these systems together really are a big part of creating the most accurate weather representation. But if we can use the vehicle on top of it, traction control, use that to know if there's ice patches on the roadway, to be able to say, okay, well, there's a possible place where there might be some skittish areas. This is really a big part of it, and it creates redundancies in it that is really key to, I think, having that good AI, that weather representation. But it goes from whiteout conditions to rain to flooding to all these. It's really a big part of how important it is, and it translates a lot, especially into connected corridors for freight and trucking. Yeah. Right, this is where they have significant issues out there, and they need to be able to be truly understanding what's going on.
Yeah. Got to get that 4-wheel drive, man. You live on the East Coast. Got to get the
exactly.
Yes. New York, I'm like, you live where you live, right? Like, you're buying a 2-wheel drive car. You're gonna have a lot of issues in the snow. You gotta buy a 4-wheel drive.
Exactly.
Yeah. What safeguards are in place to prevent system errors or hacking? Right. We're always fighting those things, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different safeguards that come into play, and I think it's the combination of it. It's they call it the Swiss cheese example. The more layers you put, the less chance there's actually a hole that you're going to find coming through it. So encrypting the data is a big part of it, right? So from the vehicle to the cloud of that vehicle, to our cloud, to our individual users, to our drivers, whoever is going to get there, the data is going to be encrypted throughout the way, and there's significant access control limitations and how those things kind of would run. Right. There's a lot of different cybersecurity layers, both at the entry point, any type of interface, right? So if we're working with an API that is going to go into a GPS system that is publicly available versus a system that is backed by some sort of protocol, if it's only for an agency folks to access, these are all big parts of how we try to work on improving cybersecurity as a whole. There's a big part on the network side. in terms of the connectivity of networks. That's not our area of focus, but it's really important, I think, in terms of thinking the cell providers and whatever network that is going to be running on, 5G network or so on. It's really key because more and more because the data is going to go to the network to be able to be transmitted rather than that short range communication. You got to have that high, that trustworthiness in there and that hardening of it. And I believe they're doing a decent amount of job here in the US to make sure that that's the case.
Right.
And then actually one of my favorite parts is actually using AI to detect the anomalies in cybersecurity to be able to improve itself.
Right.
So using that own technology to be able to kind of give us help make better cybersecurity decisions and so on.
Yeah. How does AI prioritize decisions in emergency situations like avoiding a crash? I mean, I'm in my car sometimes and my car brakes for me. I'm like, I was going to stop anyway, but it does it for me. I don't like that, but I kind of do like it at the same time.
Yeah, it's actually, I have this one curve where I drive at home and the cars look perfectly like they're right in front of me.
Yeah.
So my car's like, "Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee." I'm like, no, I'm taking in the curve. It's okay. I think, prioritization, safety first. Safety is always going to be first for whatever we do. There's obviously a lot of part of trying to make sure people get from point A to point B in the fastest, most efficient way possible, but it is primarily the safest way possible. So in terms of detecting and any type of decision making along the lines, we actually build in a lot of concepts around what safety is in terms of what it is for the driver. So a crash may happen in a work zone versus on a regular corridor. There's a lot of data that will show us that a work zone crash is much riskier to be in terms of the impact on chances of secondary crashes, lack of shoulder. There's people standing out there working on the roadways. There's a prioritization that happens based on this information. Data is truly available today to be able to know where those are. There's no question of where things are happening. Why is a different question. Why are there more and more fatalities on the road? There's a lot of debate around it. But I think AI is really helping us focus on safety first, focusing on the pedestrian, focusing on the bicyclist to know that these are the vulnerable route users out there and how to help kind of to do all that work. Again, a big part of it is really thinking about where the human interacts with the cyber in the world of digital infrastructure, which is cyber and physical come together. I like to think that there's a human part to it. So when you're looking at how to train a driver learns how to use their car, and you're sending them alerts like that slow down or braking alert, it's a really thin line between creating that safety message that's going to provide them more safety by providing them more information, or creating a distraction that might create a chance of a crash. So you don't want to have someone who's completely technologically inept in the car seeing these alerts and freaking out and being like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And create that safety part of it. So what we see in the car manufacturing world and the OEMs, they're really taking human psychology into play to really making sure to say that how and what and where are, these systems coming into play to make sure that whatever the safety comes in first, we just do not create more crashes, we prevent crashes, and overall, we create that optimization. I think an interesting place, if you ever get a chance to look at those systems, those smart tech on the cars, there's a demographic breakdown on who uses it and, in the amount of cars. Generally speaking, it's men between the age of 30 to 55 that actually use that technology in the car at a predominantly, bigger number. It seems like it's just a lot of people have it not knowing what they can actually do with it. I can tell you my wife does not know how to use the automatic cruise control in the car. I'm the one that's using it. So it really is kind of so it really is I think a difference in understanding the human psyche and how that affects it, and where AI and human interaction come in and meet. And that's a whole other conversation to have, but I think it's always really interesting what to do, especially where we interface with them.
Just off the top of your head now versus 10 years ago, you think there's far less crashes now than 10 years ago?
There's more, unfortunately. There's more crashes. The fatalities are growing in the US. I think we're at 40,000 a year each year. I think maybe we had one year that went down a little bit, but every single year over the last 10 years, it has been going up.
Wow.
Cars are safer. There's a lot more technology. Why is a big question. There's a lot of thought processes. I have my own way of thinking. I believe that, ironically, in the US, we're growing more than in Europe. And I just believe the fact that we have obviously cell phones. If you look at, when the spike happened, 2007 started going up, but in Europe it did not, because we don't use stick shift manual as much here. So we have a lot more freedom to use our cell phones while we're driving. At the intersection, it's much harder to start the car when the green light goes on. I believe that there's a big part to that, and why in the US there's a growth of there. But no, it is, despite having safer cars, besides being more connected, there's an increasing number of fatalities on the road every single year.
Yeah.
And it's an epidemic, I would say.
It's crazy because I go to Caribbean islands a lot, right? And I go there and these roundabouts and people are like, doing their thing and it's a little chaotic, but I don't see any crashes in Caribbean islands and they don't have any traffic lights. Some of them have like one on the island. So I'm like, how is this even working? Like you said, less cell phones, people are using stick manually there versus automatic. And I just feel safer in a Caribbean island with one traffic light in the entire island versus roundabouts. No accidents.
Mm-hmm. I mean, also the super highways, right? You get onto a road, the difference between 30 miles an hour to 50 to 80 miles an hour in a crash is significant. I think that there's also misconception. People are like, oh, well, I don't have more crashes if I'm at 80 miles an hour versus 65 miles an hour. It's not about the crashes. It's when the crash happens, the severity of it is significant. And no matter how safe cars are, which they are incredibly safe today, especially bigger cars in the US, we have bigger cars every single year. That's a big part to it. But yes, I do believe that it's a complacency that, us as Americans have. And we need to know we need to answer that message. We need to pull up something and we need to select the song that we want to. And these are all things that create that almost like a couch feeling in a car when you're on the freeway and you feel comfortable and invincible, let's just say.
Yeah, exactly. Are there any backup systems if AI infrastructure fails? Anything we can do to back this thing up?
Yeah, there's a lot of redundancy in the systems, servers. There's network connectivity, failovers. There's a lot of different aspects, technical aspect that obviously is there to make sure that there's improved connectivity. Manual override is always a big one. What we want to do is, at the end of the day, the human is not AI is not here to replace the human. The AI is here to support the human. So what we want to do is that it's a tool. It's not going to override. It's not going to make a decision that we think is going to be negative out there. There's a lot we're keeping traditional information and data and sensors out there. And one big part of it is what governments do well specifically is they like processes and they like redundancies and they like to create standard operating procedures. Right. I feel confident in our folks here that they know that what happens if this doesn't work, what's the next one? What happens next? What happens next? What goes on? There's a lot of surprises. There's a lot of things that we don't know yet. And some example that we're not going to be aware of. I think that it's going to be something that's going to be a learning curve. And I believe actually public-private partnerships is key to learn from both sides, from the big tech companies out there who have the most cutting-edge cybersecurity, to the cutting-edge startups that are coming up with new innovative approaches to either break that cybersecurity or create new ways of fail-safe that. Right. And then the agencies being able to kind of create the right policies to be able to improve that. So it's all a combination of that. And what we really want to do is think about if AI goes offline, connectivity goes offline, operations continue.
Yeah.
Another example,
what's the backup?
my smart switches at home for the lights. My wife says if we lose internet, I still need to make sure I can turn the lights on and off. I don't care.
Should like you made a good point, should human beings be worried that AI is here to stay and less human jobs are going to be taken away and AI is just going to take over and that's it?
We should all be worried, or it's not be worried. We should know. We know it's here to stay, and it's going to be about how I think it's going to be less about, my worry is less about human jobs, but more about actually the critical thinking that people will have with AI taken away when I see kids in schools and universities and things like that. But that's a whole other philosophical question, I believe. In terms of jobs, I just think that it's going to enable people to repurpose what they do. So I think that AI is going to be able to help be a tool to be more productive, to be able to do jobs more effective, maybe take away some of the noise out there. Maybe some jobs might be kind of taken over by AI, but I hopefully that then with AI and some of these jobs comes in new jobs, right? So there's actually creation of a lot of new opportunities out there. So in the case of departments of transportation, what I think about it in the traffic world, there's a place where they see that people who, by implementing technology and AI, it creates a whole new set of needs and requirements that need to be there. So I do believe that it's just going to be rebalancing the workforce in a better way. Right. And it's just about being ready to understand and not go against the current and be able to make sure that's part of how we do things. I just trust that hopefully the next doctor I see does not, pass this test on ChatGPT whenever I need to go see them in the future. That's my bigger fear.
Yeah. It's scary, right? Because ChatGPT, I think somebody got sued. I think a parent was suing ChatGPT because their kid committed suicide, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to tread that fine line, right? You got to know when to say no or stop, or you can embrace it, but there's always that fine line because you're a human being, right? You're telling machine to give you back data on how to do certain things. So you got to know when to say all right, this is way too realistic for me.
And I think that that's actually where people who understand how to code actually can learn a lot, because what I found is whenever I ask a question from AI to help me from, any more, let's say, less mathematical processes, it's going to create a thought process that you're going to rely on and believe in. But what you notice is when you try to write code with AI, and AI is a great coding tool, right, but it will sometimes go into a loop, that it's going to be it's not working and it's starting to go crazy. And you kind of got to call it out and be like, hey, dude, you got it wrong. And it says, oh yeah, you're totally right. Yeah. And when you realize that concrete outcome is not working, I think that helps you realize that you cannot trust it when it tells you this is the right medication you got to take. This is the right legal action you got to take. This is the right way of thinking about certain things. This is the right parenting advice. I don't know what people go and ask, but you can imagine that it will create some sort of false loop.
Right.
And you cannot see that as overtly in some questions like that, as you can see it when you try to code a program and it just does not work because its logic is flawed. Right. So I think that that's a really critical part, because the more we experience that, I think the better it is to give ourselves the right pause whenever we listen to those type of things. But yes, it is going to be a big part of learning how nefarious it could be to overly rely on some of these tools.
Yeah. There you go, folks. Before I let you go, I have a serious question for you. Very serious question here for you. You seem like a smart driver, great driver. The last time you got a speeding ticket?
So this is actually a funny one. I actually got a speeding ticket 3 days in a row. Wow. in south of France. Oh. And it was on one segment of road where I got the radar picked up and it said that I was speeding. It was 3 or 4 kilometers over. This was in France than I was supposed to. I was frustrated. I was like, I know I was not. I got one ticket the day before. I'm not going to get it again. What I ended up doing is I went to Google, downloaded all my historical traffic data, right, was able to plot my traffic, my driving pattern at that segment, and used that to prove that I was at the right speed and their system was wrong. And I sent it to them and said, I believe your camera's not been calibrated correctly, because here's my data. I was driving at the right speed limit and I got 3 days in a row at the same thing, the ticket. So I never paid because it was dismissed. So that was the last one I got, but I don't know if it's an official one because I proved them wrong that I was not speeding.
Look at that. I mean,
yes.
Imagine just you by yourself. Imagine everybody else, right? That specific spot is unbelievable.
Exactly. No, it is true. But Yeah, no, speeding. Yes, it's it's one of those. In Europe, they're really more strict than in the U.S. That's for sure.
What's the fastest you ever been in a highway in California? Have you hit 100 before?
Yeah,
Okay.
in Germany, I did Germany, Montana. We
Yeah.
did that, but in Montana, I was in the pickup truck. You don't want to go too fast on a pickup truck in
You
Montana.
flip over.
Yeah, you're not. It doesn't. It's not as pleasant as a nice
Yeah,
Mercedes in Germany on Autobahn.
for sure. Any fender
Yes.
benders, by the way? Any fender benders in your lifetime? Over under?
Unfortunately, I actually this is one of the reasons why I kind of got into this when I was
Yeah.
a kid. I when I was 8 years old, I was driving with my father, who was somewhere in Iowa, and my dad lost control of the car, some loose gravel, and we ended up crossing the median line and hitting head on multiple vehicles. It was like on a highway, so it was high speed. I was 7 years old at the time, 8 years old, something like that,
Right.
and I was in the front seat. Back in the day, we were kind of in the front seat,
Wow.
airbags out and all that, and the we hit an 18 wheeler. It was really like
Really bad.
I'm really crazy how the only thing I got was like I bit my lip, when I hit the airbag.
Yeah.
And there was a few lawsuits after that and things along those lines. And the judge dismissed it because it turns out that while they're working on the trial for that specific one,
Yeah.
another fatality happened at that location. And they just realized it's a specific place that happens at, and they kind of wanted to look into that as an issue. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my big fender bender story. Fender bender
Yeah.
was pretty significant. It was more than a fender bender. I think 6 cars head on flipping into the dirt, but
Right.
thank God that was totally fine. And um, I am so far, knock on wood, I've been pretty lucky. Pretty lucky. Anything that we've had has been people hitting us in the parking lot. My biggest issue, my biggest flaws, is parking lot poles on the left and
Yeah.
the windows. That's where I always get little issues.
Shopping carts, those things, those
Yes.
annoy me, man. I'm a stickler for shopping carts, especially a shopping cart. I'm not parking there or a parking
Yes.
cart, and I'll wheel it right back to where it belongs. I'm just OCD and crazy like that. Unbelievable.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Don't get close to my car.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. You got your calling at 7 years old from way back when, right? I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's it was a big loop back to that. So I appreciate working that, and then working with the agencies and the places where that happened, and going back, years after, it's been yeah.
Sure, man. Hey, any plugs on yourself? How can we keep in touch with you and what you're doing? You want to plug anything in there today for the listeners out there?
Yeah, no. So I think what's really it's Kimasama again. My name is Paul Zamsky. I lead our command division here at Recor. Recor is Recor.ai is really a leader in roadway intelligence. We've been doing work across the U.S. A lot of work recently in places like Texas and Florida and Georgia recently that have been really exciting. So if you want to hear more, I think it's really interesting. Follow what we're doing, Recor.ai. If any of the agencies here want to learn more, we're also more than just a service provider, a product provider. We're also partners in helping try to figure out and navigate this technology world, because it truly is a place where partnerships is really the way to understand
Right.
where this technology is going and really the benefits. And what we really want to do is just make sure that we have the safest, most efficient, and pleasant driving experience out there in the US.
That's awesome, man. Hey, Paul, thanks so much for coming on today. It's a lot of
Thank you.
fun. Much appreciated. Happy holidays to you and your family. And I can say the word now, mobility. I learned something today. Mobility. Man,
The future is intelligent mobility. Intelligent mobility.
mobility. There you go.
There you go.
Hey, let's do this again sometime down the road. I don't know when, but we'll figure it out, right?
Sounds good. I appreciate it, Kenford. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of really cool things happening in the next few months, and always happy to also share some real use cases. That's really, I think, the beauty of it.
For sure. My door is always open. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. I'm Kenford. He's Paul. Thanks for listening.